Okay, we're zooming in today, the Colony South Ballroom in Clinton, Maryland. I want to welcome those of you that are coming in by Zoom throughout the state. Welcome to NAIFA's 4th regional meeting for 2019. We got a great speaker coming up in a little while, but I just wanted to sort of make a couple of quick introductions. We've got some important some people in the room that I think deserve to be recognized. I want to recognize, first of all, 2 past presidents. I'm Brian Jollis, by the way, president of NAIFA Maryland for this year. I want to recognize Paul Doherty, who's in the back of the room. Paul is not only a past president of Maryland, but also a past president of NAIFA National. So I want to thank Paul for being here. We'll make it sound real loud. Okay, and then we have another past president here, Shana Stringfeld. I want to thank you from State Farm as well. Both of them are State Farm agents representing our association. Thank you for your continued commitment and all the hats that you wear, Shana. I know that not only past president, but you're constantly in the background and in the foreground, making sure we continue moving forward towards fulfilling our 2020 initiative. We've got Joan Bryson and Bryson Poppin here today. They are the 2 of them are our lobbyists for Maryland, but also lead the way when we're hitting Washington D.C. I'm going to ask our membership chair is not here today, so I will make a quick comment first. For those of you at your desks, at your offices, and throughout your communities, NAIFA Maryland and NAIFA National make a commitment to you to do 3 things: educate, advocate, and differentiate. Now, just real quickly and briefly, as far as education, that's what this is about today. Every time we hold these regional meetings, every time we get together, and the 12 additional Zoom presentations that we'll be bringing you NAIFA Live going into January are all opportunities to learn. It's about education, about bringing our members knowledge that they can learn today and use tomorrow. So just want to let you know that that's what NAIFA is about. Advocate. Advocacy, that's the main reason many of us are part of NAIFA. Continuing to be to stand behind your industry, behind your constituents that you represent in your practices and your career. This is important, and we have Bryson Poppin and Joan Smith. Joan's our executive director, also our lobbyist as well. So I wanted to have them come up and share with us a little bit what's going on in the state, and then also he'll be introducing our insurance commissioner, Al Redmer, a little bit later in the program. Thank you, Bryson.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bryson Popham. With me is Joan Smith. We are privileged to represent NAIFA Maryland in Annapolis and around the state. Today we're in Prince George's County, and we just concluded a very productive meeting with a very important legislator, Derek Davis, who chairs the House Economic Matters Committee, before which many of our important issues are heard. Your leadership was present at this meeting, and we were able to have a very frank conversation about some issues. Most important, we got to know Derek a little bit better, and that is our strength, really. This is a relationship business, just like yours is a relationship business. Now, Brian, a minute ago, gave you the NAIFA credo, which is advocate, educate, differentiate. And I'm going to add one word to that, Brian, just for the sake of this presentation, and that is regulate. Because it's my privilege now to introduce to you our insurance regulator in Maryland. Al Redmer is, as I have said before and will no doubt say again, the best insurance commissioner we have had in Maryland in the 40 plus years that I've been in this business. I don't say that just to flatter him. I say it because it's true. And I think part of the reason is he came from our ranks. He knows the business. He knows how to protect consumers. He knows how to deal with legislators. Al was present at our meeting with Delegate Davis just a few minutes ago. We enjoy a close working relationship with him. So it is our great privilege to introduce to you now Maryland Insurance Commissioner Al Redmer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm going to put this down before I lose it. It's a pleasure to be here, and it was an absolute pleasure to see my longtime friend, Delegate Chairman Derek Davis. Derek and I served together in the House of Delegates. He is a great guy. And we in the insurance industry, whether it's from a regulatory perspective or you being in the real life insurance industry, it is a pleasure to have him as chairman of Economic Matters. He is always open and responsive and willing to listen to our point of view, which is all we can ask for any legislator. But it's also a reminder for each of us that we need to get involved in the process. Joan and Bryson do a phenomenal job in Annapolis. They have long-standing, terrific relationships, and they're very influential with individual members of the General Assembly. However, it is always important for any representative to have the folks back home to help them interact and educate the members of the Maryland General Assembly. So for all of you, please be involved and engaged in the legislative process. First, my apologies for my shabby look. It is the middle of No Shave November as an awareness for prostate health. So for all of you guys of a certain age, make sure you get out there and get your exam. You'll be glad you did, kind of. With that, first, let me thank you for what you do. And I have said this at each and every NAIFA meeting. We spend all day, every day, trying to protect Maryland citizens. And too often there are folks that contact us. They believe that they have been mistreated to one extent or another, or they've been given bad information, as an example. And I appreciate NAIFA's commitment to education and professionalism. And to the extent that we have more folks engaged in those activities, that certainly makes our job a whole lot easier. So thank you for that commitment. I'm just going to take a couple minutes this morning talk about some of the things we're working on at the Maryland Insurance Administration. I'd be happy to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. You know, technology, the proliferation of technology has been significant throughout the industry over the last decade or two. And one of the things that we will be doing soon is looking at and reviewing our anti-rebating statutes. As you know, you are prohibited from providing things of value to consumers as an inducement to buy. But with technology, there are all kinds of tools that are currently available that act as risk mitigation or risk reduction tools. As an example, if a carrier gives you a water detection device for your basement to detect flooding so that you can reduce the amount of damage, is that really an inducement to buy? We think that there are tools that should be made available to Maryland consumers, and we're going to take a thoughtful, deliberate review of those current statutes. Additionally, we're going to review our statutes regarding captives. There are very few captives that are domiciled in Maryland, mostly because our laws are not very favorable or encouraging of them. We're going to review the laws. We're going to review that industry to see if it makes sense to tweak the law in order to encourage the formation of captives in the state of Maryland. We are also reviewing our surplus lines code. As you know, to go into the surplus line market, you have to be denied coverage from admitted carriers, with the exception of those that are on a list. We're looking at adding cyber coverage in the commercial market and also flood insurance to the export list that will allow you to automatically access surplus lines without going through the declination process first. There's always a lot going on in the health insurance space, as you know. The Affordable Care Act for the individual market, we have seen now for the second year in a row, a rate reduction in the low double digits. That's a good thing. So we saw in 2019, the current year, a reduction of, I think it was a little over 20% in the individual market. That's going to be followed by a 10% decrease in 2020. We are finally seeing that marketplace stabilize a little bit, and we're hoping that this second decrease in rates will see the marketplace stabilize a little bit more. In the small group market, we're seeing a moderate, low single-digit increase of I think it's 3.5%. So we continue to see a stable, competitive market in small group. So we have seen improvement in the Affordable Care Act products over the last 2 years. We are also the state is going to apply to the federal government for a waiver regarding our SHOP program. If you remember this, the SHOP program are tax credits that are available for small employers to provide health insurance benefits to their employees. We have not seen success in that marketplace. There's still a little less than 1,000 folks that are in the SHOP market, in part because to get those tax credits, you get them on the back end, meaning the employer has to sign up, pay for the coverage for a year, and then the next tax filing, they get the tax credit. So from a cash flow perspective, the credit really doesn't help much during that first year. So the state's going to apply for a waiver in an effort to create an upfront benefit so that they can get the tax flow benefit of the tax credit in real time, beginning with the first month. So we're hoping that if that's approved, we're going to see some benefit to that. To that, there was an amendment added at the request of Bryson and a couple of the trade associations, including NAIFA, that required the Insurance Administration to evaluate the CE process. And we put together a work group. That work has been completed. The report should be done soon. What we did learn is that any changes that we do need to make, fortunately, can be made through regulation, will not have to go through statutory approval. We are also evaluating a change that would allow a producer that is seeking a designation, CPCU, CLU, etc. If you're seeking a designation and you have excess CE credits, you would be able to roll over some of them until the next cycle. We're hoping that will encourage folks to seek designations and continue to educate themselves. The last thing I'm going to mention is we spent a lot of time at the Insurance Administration trying to improve competition, add carriers to the marketplace, and we've been very successful doing that. We've added over 150 new carriers and lines of business in the last 4.5 years. However, one of the things I learned trying to encourage carriers to come into the market and create jobs was that, and having been in this business my entire adult life, I was embarrassed to learn that you could not get an insurance risk management degree in Maryland. As a matter of fact, she's gone, but I heard a story from Hartford Mutual Insurance Company that every year they get 10 or 12 interns, and they have to get them from Temple University. So here we've got Maryland-based domestics getting interns from another state because we don't have the quality candidates here in Maryland. Well, to make a long story short, we started knocking on doors. We found a willing partner with former Mayor Kurt Schmoke at the University of Baltimore. And this year, for the first time, you can sign up for an insurance risk management degree at the University of Baltimore. I think we have our first 10 or 12 students that are enrolled, and it's off to a good start, and we are actively trying to promote that program in an effort to replace some of us older dinosaurs that will be leaving the industry sooner rather than later. The last thing I'm going to say is we spent a lot of time trying to inform and educate consumers. We naturally do that through social media. So I would invite you to like us on Facebook. If I've already bored you, go ahead now on Facebook. Like us on Facebook and all of the other social media platforms. And as I tell producers this all the time, as we try to educate folks, take our information and share it and use it as a third-party reference as you educate folks about their needs and solving their problems. So with that, Brian, I don't know if we have time, but I'm happy to take a couple questions and talk about whatever you would like to talk about. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, well, the MIA has been very progressive and had transparency regarding the long-term care insurance industry, especially as it regards rate increases. There are now quarterly meetings that happen, and a lot of information is on your website, so we can see who's going to be testifying, etc. I wonder if you're seeing any decrease in Maryland requests for rate increases. And the second part of that, I did attend a hearing. It was at least a year ago in September for one carrier, and I'm happy that there's been no rate increase granted yet. That's a long window. Does that mean that perhaps that carrier has withdrawn their request?
So it could, and Sally, if you want to send me an email, I'm happy to get you the specifics on that one filing. And let me pause for those that are watching remotely. I'm chatting with Sally Lineback, and Sally has been a champion on long-term care issues for decades, but certainly since I came back to the administration in 2015, and we have made significant changes and advancements in the long-term care space in Maryland. As you indicated, we are much more transparent, and a lot of the changes that we've made have been directly due to your participation and your advocacy. So I appreciate it, appreciate your activity very much. Bryce?
Al, just for the sake of everyone in the room, Sally continues to lead in that area. She has, as a result of her work on the long-term care task force, has brought forth a couple of ideas that we have to bring before our joint legislative committee, but we expect will find their way into legislation in 2020. And Sally's the energizing force behind that. I'd like you, if you don't mind, if I have a moment here, Brian, just to give your own personal reaction to something that Joan and I both attended, I guess it's several years ago, at Catonsville Community College. It is a public meeting that the MIA held on the subject of long-term care. And it was striking to me. I didn't know what to expect going in there. The auditorium was full. It was full of people, generally speaking, older, people who had bought long-term care policies early on when it was introduced. And there were a lot of really heart-wrenching stories told that day. And I know that you listened to all of that. And I just wonder, from that day forward, if that has informed your view of that particular subject that is long-term care, not just long-term care insurance. These people were upset because of the premium increases and lack of availability of long-term care insurance. But do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, and Sally, don't let me fail to respond to your question. There were some heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching stories, but I was struck by how polite and well-informed and well-reasoned the folks were that showed up. As you said, that room was packed, and I expected, having been a former legislator, I expected to walk into the room and have the pitchforks waiting for me, but they were polite, well-reasoned, and well-informed and educated about long-term care issues. And when I became commissioner the second time in January of 2015, it did not take long before I started to get the calls and the emails. I think Sally probably called me on January 21st. But what we learned at the meeting, I started hearing from folks, and we did the meeting in April of 2015 because we needed to get a better idea of what was going on and what the state of reality was. Some of the folks at the agency understood it. I didn't necessarily understood it, so I wanted to get it. And we got an earful. What I heard was, among multiple things, not only are we upset that we got the rate increase, we were upset because we didn't even know that the rate increase was even being considered. So that's why we made the decision at that very moment that we're not going to approve any rate increases until we have a full-blown public hearing. And as Sally mentioned, we do one every quarter with the rate increases that have been requested in the last couple of months. We Facebook it live. We have a conference call so folks that can't make it physically can call in. And we make the carriers come in and give us a story as to how much they want and why. The other thing we did was we went to the General Assembly just last year. The carriers didn't like it because of the expense, but we now require the carriers once a year to provide customers with the form number of their policy. So they all have the policy number, but as you know, after 20 or 30 years, you might not be able to find the policy. The rate increases are based on form number, not policy number. So now we require the carriers to provide the form number, so as a consumer, you can determine whether your policy is going to be affected by the proposed rate increase or not. Additionally, we have added a whole number of factors that we look at in determining a rate increase. Long-term care is different than any other factor, any other policy. And we have carriers that might be asking for a rate increase, and their current loss ratio might be 10%, but they're asking for a big rate increase because their projected loss ratio for the life of the contracts might be at 85, 90, or 100%, or maybe even higher. So we're looking at what the current loss ratio is, and not just their their long-term loss ratio. We're also looking at dividends. Does the carrier now, or have they in the past, taken dividends and funneled them up to the mothership, as an example? What are they doing regarding reserves that have been released? Are they holding the reserves for the pool of clients, or are they releasing them back up to the mothership? So we look at a lot of things that we have not looked at before, in part because of all the education that we have received from consumers and folks like Sally that know this industry very well. Regarding your question specifically, get back to me and I'll let you know about the specific requests that you mentioned, but generally, no, we are not seeing a decrease in the number of rate requests or the amount of requests. They're typically not getting what they are requesting. What we have done in multiple instances we don't have the authority to do this, but we use our charm and influence to encourage carriers to provide landing spots, so that rather than having to give up your policy or to give it up or eat the increase, you can buy down your benefits or eliminate one of your options in order to avoid or at least mitigate some of the rate increase.
And you led right into what I was going to suggest, because I was on one of those quarterly calls, and I don't want to give credit to the wrong carrier. I think it was Hancock. And every week I get a call from a client who I know it's more than, if they tell me it's more than a 15% increase, then I know that they got another one coming likely the following year, maybe for multiple years.
Yeah.
I think the communication is lacking by the carrier to prepare the client fairly, to make adjustments to their contract and make intelligent decisions and allow us as advisors to advise them. without knowing the scope of the increase that was requested, and if it's going to be multiple years. They seem to only tell you that year. So that was one. The other part of this is the landing piece. The most effective landing piece has to do with inflation, typically. Most people can't go longer on that elimination period. They lose certain other provisions in many contracts if they do.
Right.
And it makes the contracts very not really well positioned to help them in the future.
Yeah.
But the inflation, and Sally will probably echo this. 10 years ago, Sally, we were telling our clients that inflation was 5%. And we did that for years. The last 25 years, it's been
Right.
5%. The last 6, 7 years, we're seeing maybe 3.7, 3.8, inflation for long-term care. Hancock, I believe, was the one that said, we'll give you a landing place to take 5% compound down to 3% compound. That's a fixable option.
Right.
I don't know whether you have the authority as the insurance commission to not ask, but tell. You must have a 3% compound option. I don't know if you can do that or not, but
We can't. We're limited to our, as I said, our charm and influence.
What does it take to be able to say that?
We'd have to go to the legislature.
It wouldn't need legislation?
Yep, our cap is 15%, regardless.
Artisan?
Yeah, I like that idea.
This is a perfect subject for the Joint Legislative Committee to discuss. It's an interesting idea. I've not heard it before you just mentioned it.
So part of the feedback that we hear, and Brian mentioned it, matter of fact, Delegate Cullison invited us to do a long-term care town hall meeting at Leisure World a number of weeks back. And one of the things we hear is, it was 15% this year and last year, and where's the end? How much longer, how do we make a long-term decision when we don't even know what's going to occur next year? So if we had the ability, as an optional basis, to approve, 50, 60, 70%, and say that's it for 10 years, that's, that gives somebody more information to make a long-term decision than they currently have.
And just so you know this, Al, but the way our policy is developed, Sally, that's a Joint Legislative Committee discussion that you would probably have to lead, and we would decide what we want to do.
But I will say, this is a national issue. We are actively engaged at the NAIC in this issue, and just last week they put a Pennsylvania company, SHIP, S-H-I-P, I forget what it stands for, into receivership. So there's about 1,000 folks in Maryland with these policies. It's going to go to the guarantee fund, which means that their benefits are going to be capped, probably lower than the amount that they bought. So it's a significant problem, and there's a lot of risk for these policyholders if a carrier does not get rate increases to the extent that they remain sustainable.
Before we leave this subject, and maybe this will be the last question on it, do you have any encouraging words for the state of the long-term care insurance segment of the market today? Have they got their act together? Are things better now? Do you have any sense about that?
I think the products are more appropriately priced today than they were 5, 10, 15 years ago, but the problem is the folks that can afford these premiums are limited. So that's a significant problem. We're seeing a proliferation of new products that are hybrid in nature with long-term care and life insurance combined. I don't know that those benefits are certainly as rich as what has previously been available in the marketplace. But it really needs to be, in my opinion, something that the federal government should get involved in, whether it's through tax credits or what have you, because to the extent that folks don't buy long-term care and they have to access care and they bleed out their assets and they end up on Medicaid, we're all paying. It's going to be a budget buster, long-term for both state and federal government.
Yep.
And on that cheery note,
I will share on a positive note.
when I get done this, I'm going to go to motivational speech.
I will share on a positive note. Again, we get a call about once a week in our office, and I've yet to have any client turn around and even breathe the word cancel the policy.
Right.
They believe in it, and they should. And the older that they get, the more important they realize it is in their planning. They're starting to position it with other things and think about how it's going to fit in if they have to cut the benefit down in the future. But they're all to the person. I've yet to have one I don't know if it's true of you as well, Sally. People don't drop the long-term care.
No.
It's an important part of their planning, and it will always, I think it always will be.
Yeah.
But I do want to say also in other states, Maryland leads the way. I don't know any other state, I'm not aware, that's as progressive in terms of really putting some thought into how we're going to look at this going forward. I had a call from a client in Virginia. He's taken the full 30% hit. He just had a hit a couple years ago, and he's asking me, is there another one going to be coming? And my guess is he won't have one anytime soon because they're going to hit him all at once, unlike what we do. But will he have another one? Almost definitely.
He doesn't have a Maryland contract.
No, he
Okay.
he bought it in Virginia. Otherwise, it's where you bought the contract, right?
Well, yeah, but we had a carrier that we found out was, for somebody that moved out of state, they started charging them the other state's rates.
Thank you for that. He
We
lives in
have,
Maryland now.
we have,
Maybe we got a shot.
we have fixed that in that one instance, but,
Helpful hint from the commission.
Yeah, you know what?
yeah.
I'll check into that. Rob, if you were listening. Okay. You might get a copy of this. All right. Well, thank you so
hey,
much.
thank you. Appreciate you.
I always want to add that our insurance commissioner, and for those of you who didn't hear earlier, his whole career prior to becoming insurance commissioner has been in our industry. We have a friend who understands what we do and the importance of it, and knows how to talk on it at the highest level. So we really appreciate all that you do for us, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. Okay, so before we roll on to our main speaker this morning, a couple of quick things. First of all, I wanted to make sure for those of you who are listening in that you understand the distinction. We have sponsors and we have partners. And I want to reiterate again the idea of the partner sponsorship and how you should take advantage of this and how this will work. We have three specifically. One of them will be speaking today. But I want to talk about Dave Beck, Bellman Klein. Bellman Klein's a sponsor. Dave's a DI specialist. He was our speaker at the last regional meeting. On a monthly basis, at least, I'm on the phone with Dave. Just ideas. So just to give you some thoughts. It's about understanding, being able to talk to someone like Bellman Klein, our DI partnership, and realizing that he will be able to find those spots in the industry, concepts and ideas, not necessarily just carriers, to help you be better at the work that you do for your clients. So Dave Beck, Bellman Klein, thank you for your partnership. Also a fellow NAIFA member. AXA Equitable will be talking shortly, so I'll say a few words about him, but I want to move on to Medicare, HTA, our Medicare sponsor. You know, again, no one on their staff, no one on their entire team is commission-based. They're education and value add, and certainly they have the products and services that they offer as a company. But they partner and work with a lot of our members, and they're mostly there from our relationship to add that value. So when you have questions concerning Medicare, she will be our speaker at our December workshop. When we're at the conclusion today, I'll give you the details on that. But it's coming up in December. It is at the historic Oakland Manor in Ellicott City. Again, date and time at the end. I will also now like to talk about AXA Equitable. Michael Z. Yeah, Michael Z. And I met a few years back, but one of the first meetings I remember with Michael was having lunch and him explaining to me a concept I was struggling with. Somebody needed to turn on income early and prior to 59 and a half. And I was thinking they're going to have to pay taxes, they're going to have to pay penalties. And he said you need to be familiar with 72T and 72Q. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's another reason you need to talk to Michael Z. Because it's the education and the value. I'm going to go back a few years prior to that. I learned something called the in-service rollover within a 401k plan. Somebody who's actively working. Learned this at a NAIFA workshop, by the way. A NAIFA regional meeting of 5-6 years back. The idea is that somebody actively working typically cannot take money and roll it out of their current 401k plan. But under the in-service rollover provision, typically you find in those 401k plans at age 60, even though you're actively working, you can roll it over. And a lot of times, you are going to use some of the instruments, some of the things that Michael's a specialist in the annuity side, that will allow you to put a floor into some of those assets as you approach retirement and make sure that you can continue to draw lifetime income. There's a place for it, and Michael Z is a specialist in that field and understands where it fits in. Now today is an example of our partner relationships. It's about bringing you a more comprehensive, a broader look and the value that our partner relationships bring to our membership. So today is really going to be about considerations for successful retirement that, again, will have you think about a different way to handle and look at the new retirement. So with no further ado, I will ask Michael Z to come up and his presentation on considerations for successful retirement. Let's hear from Michael Z.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Good morning. And I just want to thank NAIFA for inviting us in, and I'm a proud sponsor of the NAIFA organization. I believe in it. Reason why I believe so much in the insurance industry is because pretty much that's where I've been since college. You know, don't hold it against me, but I am a New Jersey native. I went to Rutgers and all that stuff, and in about 2004 is when I came down here for AXA. But prior to that, AXA was the first company that hired me out of college. So I graduated with an economics degree, and I started in the insurance industry right away back in the home office. Mainly on the annuity side, but obviously we're versed on most aspects of insurance that's out there. And for the past 20 years, it's been a blessing. And I think the reason being is because I definitely enjoy helping people understand retirement, understand insurance, and understand the need for protection. Because I'm a big believer there when it comes to finances and when it comes to investing. Basically, everyone's investment decisions throughout their life are based on two different emotions. Any idea what they are? Fear and greed. Fear and greed, that's absolutely correct. So the reality is an individual, much like myself, wants to make as much money as possible through our investments, but we want to lose as little as possible going forward. The unfortunate thing is a lot of our clients out there don't necessarily understand some of the risks associated with investments, and it's important to understand what type of challenges clients have in order to meet their retirement expectations. So with that, that's what I'm going to touch on. It's a smaller group here, so if anyone's got questions, just please let me know. But a couple of things that I want to touch on today is number one is our market environment. All right, what are people saying about our market environment? What are people seeing on the news, things of that nature? We're going to talk about the need for protection, because what we'll see in a minute with the market's at historic all-time highs right now. And now it's time to start talking about protection to a lot of our clients. All right, and I ask this whenever I do client seminars to most individuals in the room. I say, think of it this way. When do you want homeowners insurance? Before your house burns down or after your house burns down? Right? It's a simple question. Before, right? The crazy thing is that as a wholesaler, wholesaling through the tech bubble and then more recently the financial crisis, it's funny how people, after their house burns down, their investment portfolio then wants guarantees. The reality is that's a lot of times the wrong time for protection. You need protection prior to when bad things happen. And that's going to lead us to some real high level of protected guaranteed retirement income. We're going to talk a little bit about inflation and healthcare and the lack of people actually looking into the costs of healthcare throughout retirement. And then lastly, we're going to touch upon how annuities can help. So, first slide here, everyone's probably seen this chart. This has been our S&P 500 index going back to 97. So obviously it shows the tech boom followed by the tech wreck, and then it follows a couple of years with the crazy housing and flipping houses and all that stuff, and then we see the financial crisis of 08 and 09 happen, where people's 401ks turned into 201ks. I'm sure you guys heard all about that. And then now, obviously, we've been on a 10, 11-year bull market, all right? So the reality is that what's next, all right? And I'm going to jump to this, and I'll go back to this. More. There it is. So what's next? Looking for opportunities. The reality is where do you think we're going to wind up now? You know, I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, and I've been doing this for a while, trust me, but it will happen. I say, if you look at this, what's the next line you're going to draw? And what do you think most of them draw? Down, all right? And that's where opportunities for protection come into play, because the reality is it's never a straight line, all right? What this shows you is this is S&P index returns on a yearly basis, but in the red shows intra-year returns of the S&P. What's interesting to take away from this is you could have down 9 and up 15 in a single year, all right? What I find is very interesting, AXA put this kind of client sales piece together, and it's just real high level, just trying to get clients to understand exactly what investing is. But more importantly, I look to this little chart over here. So what this shows you is investing in the S&P 500 back in 1969. And all the way on the left-hand side, if you stay fully invested with a $10,000 investment, and you just wrote it out back from 1969, that investment is worth over $1 million. All right? Now, this was astonishing when we came out with this. Out of the past 50 years, if you only missed 60 days of trading throughout those 50 years, your $10,000 only grew to $60,000. All right? So that's where you hear it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market and having longevity. The problem is people's fear and greed factors always rule their decisions, right? Because what happens when we saw this chart over here, market's going up here, and I remember back then is when I was looking at houses and buying homes and stuff like that, and I remember, people remember. Now there's like 1 or 2 shows on it, but remember back in like the early 2000s and stuff when it started growing and people were giving away mortgages, you had everyone trying to flip homes, right? Everyone trying to flip homes. So it's funny because the second I hear regular people start talking about things, I know it's time to go out, because I'll never forget this. I'm what? So this was probably what, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. I was sitting in a Safeway, and at the time we were living in Delaware. I was standing in a Safeway line checking out of the grocery store, and some woman, nearing retirement or at retirement, says that she's just about retire and she's thinking about getting a real estate license to start flipping homes. And I'm just here like, wow. So someone who knows nothing about this industry thinks that it's easy money. But then obviously we all know what happened, Everyone jumped back into the market over here, and then everyone lost their shirts in the investments, And then what happens when the market goes down? You have those panic investors that say, "What? Get me out of here! I don't want to do anything like this." They're sitting in CDs or bank products, earning 0 point nothing right now, and they haven't made any of this money back. All right, and it's all about the math of gains and losses. And this is just pure educational pieces. What I use with clients is, if you buy a stock from me for $10 and it loses 50% value, you need how much to get back to even? 100%. 100% you need to get back to even. Most clients, whenever I ask that, say, "Oh, you just need 50%. No, you need a greater return. So the reality is that we're not trying to time the market when it comes to our future retirement. We're just wanting to stay in the market. And that's where protection comes from. In particular, lower cost investment options, because what this chart shows through Morningstar is active managed portfolios. All right, your active managers versus your S&P indexes out there. So the reality is what Morningstar looked at is that most active managers are falling behind the benchmark. All right, if you look at it, large cap blend, only 36% outdid the actual benchmark. So what this means is what our investors are looking for are lower cost investment options with protection. All right, and that's something that AXA Equitable is able to provide and has been providing for our clients for quite some time now. All right, so when it comes to protection, all right, 79% of consumers are interested in protecting their wealth, but the reason why most people don't hold their monies in the stock market is because fear of loss. Bottom line, people don't realize you buy and sell at the wrong times. Market's going up, I'm going to sit, I'm going to wait. Next thing you know, you hear your neighbor's making 20% in the stock market in 1 year. You buy in, and then what happens? It goes down the next year. All right? And then they come back and say, "See, I never should have done this. I'm going to get out," because all you do is lose money in the markets. When the reality is no, it's all about educating yourself on how to invest and how to diversify in the markets. So when it comes to principal protection, on average, consumers hold less than half of their assets in stocks. All right? A conservative client, conservative investors, 83% say that preservation of principal is their greatest concern. All right? And lastly, the tendency to have the stock market fluctuating is the reason why most individuals will not invest. So then I ask clients, well, what if we could show you a way we could give you the opportunity to invest but hedge against your downside risk anywhere from 10 to 30% protection, all right? It's a good concept that we're going to touch upon later, and I'll go through it with you. So that leads me to a lot of the retirement challenges that our clients face today. All right, first and foremost, which everyone knows, is longevity. All right, people are living longer. That's why healthcare expenses are going up and things of that nature, because we're keeping the elderly alive longer. All right, so obviously healthcare rises with that. That takes into account then inflation. We'll touch upon that, which is, I think, is inflation is like the silent killer to everyone's portfolio. All right. If you think about it, you had $10,000 today, and you put 10 grand in a safe or put it under the mattress. What will it be worth 10 years from now? $10,000, right? But what would you be able to buy with that same money? It's purchasing power, you know? We'll see a couple of slides later. Think about it this way. There are clients that I've been in meetings with that paid more for their last car than they did their first house. All right? That's inflation. And that's why, with longevity being one of our challenges of people living so long, if you're spending a 20 to 30 year retirement, you have to account for these rising costs. But most people are fearful to account for these rising costs because they're worried about the volatility that happens in the market. You know, I don't want to invest and lose half of my money. All right, that's the reason why most people are on the sidelines. And then obviously interest rates right now, for those conservative investors out there, who could go ahead and sit in a bank product making 0 point nothing, you know? Last time I checked, interest rates are sub 2% on the 10-year treasury, all right? And they're probably not going up anytime soon, all right? And then lastly, taxes, all right? Variable annuities and annuities in general, one of the advantages that they have is it's a tax-deferred investment. You keep your money working more for you and get that compounded growth on top of returns with that. So when it comes to guaranteed lifetime income, you know, and when polling it out there from the Insured Retirement Institute, 73% of clients are concerned that income won't last through their retirement, and 55% believe that the investment risk is necessary, that there is investment risk necessary for financial success. So there you have it. You have people that understand I need to invest, but they're thinking that their retirement income won't last, all right? So here's a way that we need to design products and protection that could give a client the ability to invest, to grow their asset, and give them that safety net, if you will, to retire off of, you know? And I sometimes put here, when talking about, what's the next slide here? We're talking about guaranteed income on annuities. If you think about it, the reason why they're becoming more and more popular is because Social Security on average only accounts for about a third of a client's overall retirement income, all right? The other 2/3 are coming from a personal pension or annuity if they have, or, hey, I grew my money in my 401k, now I'm investing it for retirement, and I need to supplement and bridge the gap with my 401k assets. And the reason why I think annuities have such a good place now, especially with market at all-time highs, they act as guardrails on a bridge, you know? And I think about this all the time, and here's a scenario that you could use. I'll give you 2 quick ones that I use with clients, because obviously with annuities, especially with income guarantees on variable annuities, they're expensive. You're gonna have to pay more for a guarantee. So sometimes when I'm just talking and educating clients about it, I'll say, think of it this way. So I live over in Severna Park by Annapolis, all right? So you got the Bay Bridge right there. Bay Bridge costs like what, $5, $6 to go over? I don't know, it just clicks off my Easy Pass every time I have to go. But think of it this way. What if I was able to build an identical bridge, like they're looking at now, right next to the current Bay Bridge, but I'm not gonna put any guardrails on it, and I won't charge a toll. So when you and your family are going over the bridge in the summer to go to Ocean City, Maryland, to enjoy a fun vacation, are you gonna go over the $5 toll bridge, or are you gonna go over the bridge with no guardrails for free? $5? $5? What would you do? You risk taker?
In a plane.
In a plane, all right. So who here would want to pay? Just who here want to pay? Most people want to pay. Got a couple of people in investment. The reality is when's the last time you hit a guardrail on a bridge? Never, right?
I'm scared to cross the bridge.
Well, you're scared, but the reality is the likelihood of that happening is unlikely. but the reality is you want to pay for it for the protection. It's a similar thing that I do sometimes. I've never jumped out of a perfectly good airplane, nor will I ever jump out of an airplane. But let's just say we go and we take everyone to the airport or whatever. We're gonna, each of us are gonna pay $100 to go tandem jumping out of an airplane. All right? And then right when we get all trained up, we're all harnessed in, and right before we're taking off, we're up in the plane, right before your instructor turns around to you and goes, all right, look, I know you paid $100 to come jumping out of this plane. Trust me, I've done this a lot of times, and 99.5% of the times, this parachute will open. All right? There's only about a 0.5% chance that it won't. However, if you're willing to, if you give us an extra $5, I'll give you this safety parachute that's guaranteed to open if this other one doesn't. Who here would pay the $5? Everyone, right? Well, that's 5% of your premium. So talking about expensive, that's really expensive for a little chance. That's where it all comes to how we present and how we articulate how these guarantees work. All right? Because a lot of people just hear the word annuity, and I tell people all the time, it's not what it is, it's what it does. And it's up to us to communicate it correctly so our individual clients understand how it, because as you can see when it comes to guaranteed retirement income, person's own assets are a big player in making sure he or she is going to retire with dignity. And that's where annuities come to help. The reason why people won't need to retire with dignity is longevity. All right? As you can see here, this is looking at a 65-year-old person. The reality is there's a 30% chance that 65-year-old person is going to see age 95. So that's a 20 to a 30-year retirement, what I call a 20 to 30-year layoff, because it's going to be 20 to 30 years without a paycheck that it's up to us in the financial world to go ahead and ensure that that money is met every single year for a client. And it increases, if you look at it, these are a couple of some more in-depth numbers. 65-year-old female is greater than a 30% chance to live to age 90, and there's a 1 in 5 chance that at least one member of a 65-year-old couple will live to age 95. So think about that. I mean, and that's our sweet spot right now, because if you think about baby boomers, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every single day, and that trend is going to continue till 2030. So call it another 10 years, all right? And this is some of the largest wealth that's going to retire that it's going to be up to us to help transition to guaranteed lifetime of income. And also we need to prepare for the fact that when we do financial plans need to be dynamic because things change, all right? And by that I mean you have a 50-year-old couple that you're sitting in front of and you do your financial workshop and your financial plan. The most popular retirement age that couple is going to say is, you know what, I'm going to work till 65. 65 is it, all right? The reality is there's been a study done in 2017 and 2018 that actually in the United States, the actual age of retirement is 62, all right? So think about that. Reason being is because 41% have all of a sudden health problems. Hey, something came up, I can't work anymore. Next up is I got laid off. You're 61, your company downsizes, what are you going to do? You know, hey, I got to wait another year for Social Security. I need to start pulling my assets from my retirement account. So it's up to us to prepare for the what-ifs in life, if you will. And one of the what-ifs is you need flexibility in your retirement plan, especially with guaranteed income, to go ahead and solidify an income stream for the rest of your life, even if you retire early. So if you think about the reality of guaranteed income and what you need to take. Now, I'm sure you guys have all seen this chart. Basically, it has the withdrawal rate here on the left-hand side, and then it has your asset allocation mix. All right, so at retirement, unfortunately, non-investors, the people that we talk to every day that don't know as much about investing as you and I do, worked, saved, and did everything up until retirement, and unfortunately they retire and they think he or she needs to become more conservative. But the reality is by doing that and having to try and stretch this out for a 20 to 30 year retirement, there's going to actually be a shortfall. And if you think about it, if you're looking at a 5% withdrawal rate, all right, 5% withdrawal rate, If you're a 50 bond, 50 stock guy, that's probably your best mix. You have a 76% chance of not outliving your asset on a 5% withdrawal rate. This comes into play. This is when I talk about the guardrail or the parachute. Because the way insurance companies are able to help your clients is I could say, all right, this 21% here, what if I erase it away for a fee? All right, we could take a portion of this asset for a fee and guarantee that you'll be able to take out a 5% income stream for the rest of your life. All right, and that's where annuities come into play. And it's all about how we build up and tell this story to our clients on how we can help protect their assets throughout retirement. And this comes down for the need of planning. All right, essentially this was just a study done, couples with a plan versus without a plan. I'm not going to bore you, you can all read the slide, but the bottom line is couples with a plan feel more comfortable that they're going to be able to retire in the right way and that their money will last for them. God forbid something were to happen to either one of them, they're more confident by having a plan to know that, God forbid my spouse passes away, I know I'm going to be taken care of going forward. So healthcare, here's another issue that we'll just touch upon. I know you guys got a Medicare presentation next week, and I just delivered one about a week and a half ago. But this is one of the biggest expenses I think clients underestimate for some reason. I don't know why. Because if you look about it, customers believe that they're not prepared for a major health event. There's more than 60% that think, God forbid something happens, I know I'll probably be up a creek. However, only 18% of the people are actually trying to price it out. So there's a big gap there for those of us that sell long-term care and health insurance and things of that nature. Now, Fidelity did a study, and the other company just now is slipping my mind, but in our Medicare presentation, Fidelity and another company did a healthcare study. What do you think a couple retiring at age 65 needs in order to pay for healthcare in retirement? Any guesses? Any guesses what the number is? You are right in the middle. So the two studies, Fidelity is like 279, and the other company I'm thinking of is like 380 something. So you're absolutely.
Did you say not including long-term care?
Not included.
Yeah. So just think about that. That's where. So according to this slide, more than 60% of your clients know that there's a need, but less than 18% of them address it. That's an opportunity for you guys when it comes to long-term care and health benefits and things of that nature to start having that overall financial conversation for that client. And then inflation. I mean, this is one, like I pointed out in the beginning, this is one of the biggest killers to clients' retirement plans. Because unfortunately, baby boomers and retirees, pre-retirees and retirees, unfortunately a lot of them become more conservative at retirement along with taking out a withdrawal. And that almost acts as a reverse dollar cost averaging. You know, if you're not keeping up with your withdrawal rate and then some, and if it's not guaranteed, you're gonna run out of money. You're gonna have to go back to work later on in life. And unfortunately, that's why we see a lot of elderly right now going back to work after 10 or 15 years of retirement because they can't afford it, you know? And I'll be open up, I mean, my parents are one and the same. They're in their 70s, both are still working. My dad retired early from the post office, but it's just not enough. My mom was a beautician all her life, and they're still working to this day. My mom's here like, at least it keeps me young, because she's got a hip, a new hip, and a new shoulder, and she's still rocking and rolling, you know? But she's here like, you know what, that's good for them. You know, they like it. But unfortunately, they underfunded their retirement. They didn't understand the expectations. And one of the things that I tell them, and I show them these charts. And I mean, my dad was in Vietnam and all that stuff. I was like, hey, look, what if Grandma and Grandpa gave you an extra, $100 a week or $100 a month and you invested it? And the guy, my parents here are like, well, yeah, but no one ever told us about it. You know, they weren't in finance. My grandfather was a welder and my grandmother was a librarian when they came over from Germany. So they didn't know this stuff, unfortunately. But the reality is they're lucky enough that my dad has a pension of almost $3,000 a month to pay for some of the essentials. But the reality is that need for retirement income is necessary, and the need to keep up with growth of the markets is there as well. And here's a couple of examples. Going back to 1975, it's when I was born. I didn't pick out this number, it just so happened to work out. But in 1975, as far as milk goes, went from $1.57 to 2035, it'll be $7.55. Gasoline went from, call it 50 cents a gallon to over $5. And your new home price, $45,000 in 1975, is going to grow to over $609,000 on average in the United States, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's huge. You know, that's where to think about this. You know, that's where a lot of these clients out there that we deal with paid more for their Mercedes that they just bought than they did their first home. I mean, look at it. I mean, this price is coming up to a Honda Accord, right? You get a Honda Accord with power steering and air conditioning, you're at $45,000 already. So that's why it's important to go ahead and make sure we invest for the long term. And then historically, inflation and interest rates kind of mimic each other, all right? And to think about it, I know Brian was talking about this, how other companies went from 5 down to 3% inflation. Inflation is only around 3.5% right now. Interest rates are, 10-year treasury is below 2% right now. But the reality is over time, these things mimic one another. And everything in investing in economics is cyclical, all right? Everything will revert back to the mean. What goes up comes down and goes back up again. And we saw that in the charts there. And it's up to us to create a financial plan, a comprehensive financial plan that could weather those storms and protects clients' assets, both on a capital preservation side as well as on an income preservation side. And the reason why I think a lot of our clients right now, especially on the conservative side and the retirees right now, is where do you go right now for yield? I mean, some of those clients that are looking for safer type investments, I mean, interest rates are at a historic low. I mean, this one goes through 2017, and you add 2018 and 2019 to that, you got 2 more columns at the far left-hand side. But the reason why I show this is because in a plan of a 20 to 30-year time frame, I don't think we're ever going to see 8, 9, 10% interest rates again. But I think we could normalize somewhere between 4 and 5%. And how are we building that interest rate increase, be it 10 years from now, in clients' portfolios? So it's important to help build that in, because the reality is if you're overweighted in bonds right now and interest rates go up in a portfolio, that's going to get hammered. The reason why bonds perform so well over the past 30 years is because, if you look at the last slide, we've been in a 30-year decreasing interest rate environment. You know, so I mean, I didn't get into this until 1998. So we were on the curve down. So most of these people that geared up for retirement with asset allocation has done well on their bond portfolio because we've been seeing decreasing interest rates. We now I don't think they're going to go up anytime soon, but say in the next 8 to 15 years, when interest rates do decide to go up, how are we going to handle a rising interest rate environment for our clients? All right, that's why it's important to put an inflationary hedge and something tied to interest rates on a client's portfolio. So why a variable annuity? Obviously, you get a guaranteed stream of income. In particular, the way AXAs work is a 5% floor with the ability to tie it to market returns as well as rising interest rates. You get guaranteed payments to a beneficiary because they come with death benefits. You get equity exposure, obviously, with tax deferral on the non-qualified side. And the Insured Retirement Institute, I wanted to get that right, did a study. And if you think about it, 8 in 10 of our clients are ready for an annuity. All right, 73% say these structured annuities are getting more popular and easy to understand, and 67% want an income guarantee. And I know it was a couple of years back, but I want to say it was Merrill Lynch. It was a crazy firm like a wirehouse that did a study. And to a higher net worth individual, if you could take an asset and guarantee a 5% income stream, most clients were willing to pay anywhere between 3 to 5% on that money in order to guarantee the income stream. Because the way you present it to a client is just simple. I mean, you got $1 million that you're retiring off of. We could go in the stock market. You could have fear and greed keep you up every single night. Or you could go into a fixed product, but then you're going to have to learn to live off of what, $20,000 a year in a 2% interest rate environment, call it? Well, there's another way that we could go ahead and get you a higher income stream, but it's going to come out of price. similar to how those guardrails were on a bridge, and you just kind of go into that story, and you'd be surprised. Most clients are here like, you know what, I'm willing to pay for this protection because I don't want to have to go back to work 10, 15 years from now if it doesn't work out. And then obviously the advantage of tax deferral. I should have brought, I didn't have a penny on me. I would have brought it for effect, but you'll get the, let me kind of, has anyone heard of the penny story? Okay, no? All right. So if you talk to clients, do client seminars, this is great. So let's say I'm rich, all right? And I'm going to give each of you two options. Your first option is a cash check in your hand for $1 million. The second option is I'll give you 1 penny and I'll double it for the next 30 days. Who wants the $1 million?
I'll take the 5 million.
You'll take the $5 million. You're absolutely at $5.3 million is what the penny grows to. But you'd be surprised. You do that in a client environment, probably 70%, 7 out of 10 of the clients will pick the $1 million, bird in the hand. So the reality is it's because of the tax deferred nature. Because even if you're in a 50% tax bracket and we give you $5 million, you're still walking away with 2.5 versus 1. That's just exactly what this chart looks at. You know, over a 25-year period, 200 grand in tax deferred investment grows to $1 million versus only 600,000 being taxable. So the reality is you have interest upon interest and taxes working for you more, so you're going to have a bigger part of your wealth when you retire. That's why it's real important for those younger clients that we're dealing with. I heard you speaking about trying to get someone to invest $50 a month or what have you, because that power of compounding really does it for you. Like I was fortunate to start at AXA when I was 22 years old, and I didn't know, 401k, all right, we'll start putting a little bit of money in, and now in my mid-40s, you look at it and you're like, all right, I'm getting there. Another 20 years, I think I might be all right, But I for one, want another big turn down so I can keep investing, So what is a structured product? So there are 2 types of guarantees in the variable annuity world. And I'll try and manage these slides. I don't like the way the slides present it out, so I got a little pad here that I'll use. But there's 2 types of guarantees. There's a guarantee for capital preservation and a guarantee for income preservation. All right? So these structured annuities, which are becoming more and more popular, are for capital preservation. Now, has anyone in here heard of these structured annuities? 1. Okay. So let me kind of go through it with you. So essentially speaking, a structured annuity is the ability to invest in an index, get upside opportunity with downside protection. It is different than a fixed indexed annuity because the upside is much, much greater. All right? But you do have some skin in the game. I can't come to a client and say it's principal guaranteed. I could give you a high success rate, but it's not principal guaranteed. So the way I kind of walk through it, let's see what's the next slide. All right, I'm gonna kind of move. I want to walk. All right, here. This is where I want. So this is the way I show it and educate a client how it works. So let's just say you have 3 lines. All right. And this is a 6-year product. So this is for capital preservation, all right? I'm gonna choose one idea. You're able to invest in the S&P 500 over the next 6 years, and AXA currently gives you the first 80% return as a cap rate. Not 80% of the index, 80% return. And with that comes 20%, and I call that correction protection. All right. The way insurance companies call it, it's a buffer, but clients don't understand what a buffer is. Correction protection. And then I say 3 things happen in this type of investment. The first thing that happens is a client will make money. The second thing that'll happen is a client will break even. Or the third thing is that you will lose less than you were supposed to. All right. It's that simple. So if you put in $100,000 and over the next 6 years, the market is up 50%, AXA will write your clients a check for $150,000. That's simple. If the market is up 90%, AXA will write your client a check for $180,000. walk-away value. And with that cap up there comes protection. The market is down 18%. Your client's 100 is now worth 82,000. It matures out. We erase that loss and they get back their original principal. If the market is down 22%, instead of having $78,000 back, we erase 20% of that loss and your client winds up getting $98,000 back into their pocket. All right? And the reason why I show this is because this is a very popular idea because it handles three big objections clients have when it comes to investing. Cost, complexity, and commitment. How much is it going to cost me? Am I going to understand it? And what's the time frame that I have to hold it on? So on our structured capital strategies product, there is a zero cost associated with this. It's built into our cap rates. AXA is making money, but it's similar to a fixed annuity built into the cap rates. As far as complexity goes, there's a couple of different indexes you could choose from. The most popular is the S&P 500. So you go ahead and choose an index with a downside correction protection. And as far as commitment goes, it's only a 6-year commitment. So the reason why this is getting extremely popular in the marketplace, and AXA invented this back in 2010, and last month we placed $700 million into this structure as a company. That's how appealing it is to our clients out there. Because I'm able to give you the growth of the market, and by that I'll pause there and say, over a 6-year period, what do you think the historical average return in the S&P 500 is? Over 6 years, cumulative.
40%.
It's actually 73%. 73% over 6 years is what the cumulative historical average is, okay? So if AXA, the reason why people like this so much is, hey, if you're giving me the first 80% return and the historical average is 73%, I asked a client here, if I can match you the historical average of 73%, would you be happy? What do you think most clients would say if I'll give you the opportunity to make 73? Absolutely, right? But with 20% correction protection, another thing that AXA did, and we have client-approved material on this, is what we did is we back-tested a 20% correction protection on the S&P going all the way back to 1980. So we looked at the crash of 87, we looked at tech wreck of 2000, and we looked at the financial crisis. And we looked at 369 rolling 6-year periods. If you put a 20% hedge to the downside, what do you think your probability of loss was? You've seen this. You remember the presentation? That's absolutely correct. 0. There was a 100% success rate that a client did not lose any money provided we gave 20% correction protection on the downside over the next 6 years. Now, it's not principal guarantee because, like I said, there could be that gem now coming forward that we see a 23% reduction. Your client would be down 3%. However, a lot of people taking a step back going and saying, hey, we're at historical highs in the marketplace. My greed factor is kicking in because I did stay invested through the downturn of the market, and I made a boatload of money back over the past 10, 11 years of my bull market. However, now as a consumer, I'm 10 years closer to retirement. So although I still have the greediness that I want to make this money if the market continues going up, I don't want to give it all back if it goes the other way. Well, what if we could show you a way that I could help mitigate costs on your overall portfolio, give you the ability to make the upside of the historical average of the index with correction protection that, given history, will give you a 100% success rate. You don't lose any money. That is exactly what these structured annuities are for clients, and that's why they're so popular. So you have downside protection, performance caps, and then obviously you have a time horizon of 6 years with it. So this is just a PowerPoint on how this works. So this is showing more protection on the downside. So you could get more protection on the downside, and that'll obviously lower the cap rate. So what this is showing you is a 30% cap rate with 30% correction protection, and it's essentially going to walk you through the exact same slide that we have here. In scenario number 1, if the market's up 30, you get all of it. In scenario number 2, if the market's down 30, you lose nothing. Hypothetical index goes through the cap rate, you get the cap rate. And on the downside, if it goes through the buffer, we mitigate up to the buffer, and your client would be responsible for the rest. But just like what I tell people, in the end, we're going to make money, you'll break even, or you'll lose less than your neighbor on this portion of the money, which resonates well with a lot of clients. Any questions on that? Now, one of the things that AXA does, now this is our 5-year rolling point-to-point. I referenced our 6-year rolling point-to-point. But on a 5-year rolling point, we did this with the 6-year one, has a little bit better numbers. But as you can see, over a 5-year rolling average, your average over a 5-year period is 60. If you have 20 to 30% protection, there was only 7 times out of 396 that you lost any money. All right, so even if you shortened up the maturity, because we have different maturities and all that, that's something we would get to on a client basis. But the bottom line is here, we're able to provide you equity-like returns, help save you on fees, and give you correction protection on the downside. So potential targets that sit in structured capital strategies are obviously sitting in cash, maturing bonds or CDs, old fixed annuities no longer suitable for clients, younger clients with pre-income investment protection, and then also this could be written in any types of defined benefit plans and things of that nature. So just in summary, and then I'll close up and open it to any questions. Volatile markets have increased demands for these structured type of guarantees. Wide variety of structured products available. Like I said, this is one choice out of 15 different types of segments, if you will, that we offer. But this is probably one of our most popular ones. Clients looking for investments with upside opportunity and downside protection. And key differentiating feature is principal protection versus downside buffer. So like I said in the beginning, people will look at this sometimes and say, well, that's a fixed index annuity. The reality is it's not, because like I said, it is not principal guaranteed. You're going to have some skin in the game if we see a real bad market. However, given history, there's going to be it's just going to be a minor nick rather than a gaping hole, if you will. But the reality is you're going to be able to make a lot more money on the upside through our structured investment options. And keep in mind, the reason why this is becoming popular is because going back to those risks of retirement, longevity, people are living longer. Here's a way you could invest with protection. Inflation, here's a way that I could keep up with the rising costs of goods and services because you're going to stay invested. Volatility was that V. The reason why it protects against volatility because the downside hedge. Interest rates. What are we doing for clients who are conservative in interest rate type products? Well, they're making 0 point nothing. How about we take a portion of that and give you some exposure on the upside, but also hedge against your downside risk? And then lastly, if you're dealing with clients with non-qualified monies outside of their 401k, if they invested this, it's all tax deferred. The downfall of annuities, as everyone knows here on the tax deferred side, is that would come out as ordinary income. But then obviously AXA also has ways to help mitigate taxes upon distribution through private letter rulings, but that's for another subject. But with that, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, NAIFA guys out there in the internet world. And if there's any questions, feel free. If not, my card is on the table. I left a couple of these brochures on here, and I'll be here for the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Before we sit down, I just want to say, this is an example. If you're not a securities licensed person and can't write, quote unquote, a variable annuity, just understanding the breadth and depth of how annuities work in a portfolio. They're not good, they're not bad, they just are when they make sense. You should be aware of them. And as an advisor, whether you're an insurance broker or agent that's in the life insurance or disability space, whether you're a property and casualty person, whether you're a financial advisor, in all these cases, it's really about having the breadth and depth of at least an overall knowledge. So when you sit down with your client, you are that value add. You should be able to put them in the right direction and give them new ideas and new ways that they can protect themselves, going into really what he pointed out is a new retirement. People are going to be living for the first time. Really, if we go back to 1950, the average male was expected to live, I think it wasn't even to 70 years old.
So no,
So
it was like 62, 63.
it was like 62, 62. Hard to believe. I have a sister who, she's not listening, so I can say she's about that age. And you look at the longevity charts now, and even the chart, I was looking for the number in the bottom corner of your slide, and I was trying to figure out how old that slide was. because mortality tables maybe even changed even then. So this is not even factoring in future mortality cost change. We talked about long-term care today a little bit. You heard from the insurance commissioner. We have Sally Lambach in the room, who's one of our biggest voices in our industry, let alone just our state. But these are all issues that affect us in dealing with aging and with retirement planning. So today seemed to be a lot about that. Each time we do a regional meeting, we try to do a different focus. Information you can learn today, use tomorrow. I want to bring up Joan and Bryson because I do want you to know that the beginning of next year, January 13th, we have something called Evening in Annapolis. I want them to talk just briefly about this because this is an opportunity for our members to mix with delegates in Annapolis. Come on up, Joan and Bryson, and they'll tell you a little bit more about why that's important and what your role is in that.
Yeah.
Joan and Bryson.
Hi, Joan Smith. How are
That's no
you?
problem.
Just like to cordially invite every one of you, all NAIFA Maryland members and their guests, to Evening in Annapolis, which is an event that we have once a year where we invite all 188 legislators to have drinks with us and have a little food with us from 5 to 7 p.m. at a place called Red Wine, which is on Main Street in Annapolis. And come and have drinks, have some food, but more importantly, come and meet your local legislators, your senators and your delegates. We encourage you to come, stop by for 15 minutes, stop by for an hour, but we are cordially inviting you to that event. January 13th, 5 to 7 p.m., Red Wine Bar. You will be getting an invitation soon. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, while they're here, thank you, Bryson and Joan, for all your advocacy and lobbying for us, our industry, to make sure that our voices are heard. NAIFA is the largest voice in our industry in the country. And in our state of Maryland, we lead the way because of Bryson and Joan and many of our members, some of them are here today, who add their voices to that. So we hope you'll join us in Annapolis on that date for that. Coming up next month, we have our next regional meeting. It's at the it's for Carroll and Howard County region, but I want to remind you again, anyone around the state is welcome to participate in these regional meetings. That's kind of central, historic Oakland Manor, right in the heart of Columbia, Ellicott City area. If you can't, you'll have an opportunity to Zoom in. That's our promise going into next year. We're going to give you more opportunities like this. I also want you to be aware that we're going to start tying into something called NAIFA Live. For those of you around the state listening in, we have an opportunity to join with the rest of the country 12 times, starting in January. Once a month, we'll have a high-level speaker. We're going to have viewing parties around the state. We're going to be asking for your consideration. If you have an office space that will hold 10 to 15, conference room or otherwise, consider loaning that out and being part of what we're trying to do here as far as the education component. Allow agents, advisors, brokers that are within your regional area to join you for that viewing party. The way it'll work is we'll have a very short regional meeting at your location, followed by tying in directly with the rest of the country to hear that speaker. And then following that will be a short discussion with a lot of participation opportunity to really take that information and be able to put it to use. And that's the idea of NAIFA Live, so consider that that'll be available to you starting in January. Some of you are taking advantage of it now. We'll be rolling it out at the state level, again, starting in January. So with that, I want to thank our sponsors again. We have our 3 partner sponsors, Dave Beck, Bellman Klein, again, our disability partner for information and knowledge about anything disability. AXA Equitable, Michael Z, you heard him from today. A wealth of knowledge when it comes to annuities, but the retirement process. He's someone you could call and get that value. And then you'll be hearing in December at our next meeting, our Medicare specialist, HTA. They're our partner. They're in Pennsylvania. They operate all over the state. And again, it's about the education and the value that you learn today and use tomorrow. Thank you all for attending. I want to thank everyone who came, but also those of you who are online. And we look forward to seeing you at the next NAIFA regional meeting. Have a great rest of your day.